For your book, Modern History, how did you choose which women to highlight for the book?
Well, I definitely wanted to be a living history, and so a living history. I think that it's really important that people get to define their narratives in the now. So not just something that happens after somebody dies. You know, looking at somebody like Aretha Franklin, after Aretha Franklin passed, people are all, you know, coming out of nooks and crannies. She inspired everything I do. And it's like, where were you when she was around? And you have people like Lorraine Hansberry, who's here on the cover, who was the first Black woman to have a Broadway show. And she's not somebody who necessarily came out as a queer woman, but lived her life and you know, is basically documented today as a queer woman. But what's her coming out story? She didn't get to have one. But
what was the Broadway show that she?
A Raisin in the Sun, which was originally called A Crystal Stair. And it was actually inspired by her childhood. And I think that's something that's so important throughout modern history is that we have people like Mari Copeny, who is a child, you know, at the age of 8. She's a preteen. I know I'm gonna like get yelled at on the internet, but she's a preteen now, but at the age of 8, she wrote a letter to President Obama that, you know, she doesn't have clean water in her community. And something needs to change. And so she's known as Little Miss Flint on the internet now. She's constantly raising money. Go to her page, like really support her. She's, you know, raising money for backpacks and everything. But these are people who are making a change right now. She doesn't need to, you know, go to college before we hear about her. We need to hear about what she's doing right now.
Yeah. So, in your opinion, what Black women have crushed it throughout history?
I mean, there are so many.
I know, sis.
Like, you know, like notwithstanding like folks like current obsession with folks like Auntie Maxine, you know, Maxine Waters.
Reclaiming her time.
Oh yeah, all the time, every day. And the book, actually, Reclaiming Our Space by Feminista Jones. Feminista Jones, somebody who inspires me every day. I always say that I took one women's and gender studies class and the rest was Feminista Jones. Like, she is educating people for free on the internet constantly. She just came out with a book. But we also have people like Ida B. Wells, who before the turn of the century, you know, back in the 1800s, was writing about lynchings and talking about, you know, Black lives being extinguished way before Black Lives Matter was even a viral hashtag, before hashtags even existed. And so I think that there's this legacy that we are building upon constantly. And it's about, you know, like connecting that past with the present. You know, like Lorraine Hansberry, her grandniece, Tay Hansberry, uses her voice on Instagram. She's, you know, a blogger who, you know, tries to share her heritage as, you know, the grandniece of somebody who is this iconic, but also being that iconic in the present. And I think those connections are so powerful, especially for Black women, because it's all about sisterhood.
Definitely, 100%.
And I feel like there's a lot of talk, you know, right now about intersectionality. What are things that women can do to show up for other women?
Well, the first thing we have to talk about with intersectionality, this hashtag Cite Black Women, is Dr. Kimberly Crenshaw, who created the term intersectionality. You know, we got to give props to Dr. Kimberly. She created this term specifically to talk about the Black women's experience because, you know, while women are advancing and Black people are advancing, there's no accounting for Black women. And so I think that, you know, something we can do, if you hear somebody talking about, you know, women got the right to vote in 1920, correct them politely or get sassy with it, you know, like figure out your way to retell history in a way that is affirming to everybody. And something that I like to do, you know, when you hear somebody who like doesn't watch a Netflix show that you watch and you're like, excuse you, do the same thing when people talk about history. Like, you know, really make it clear that these aren't the stories we're telling. We're not going to talk about the LGBTQ rights movement without talking about Sylvia Rivera and Marsha P. Johnson. These are just not things we're going to do anymore. And I think that when you demand that you have an intersectional narrative, that you say we're not going to leave people out, that's really where progress happens.
Keep the same energy. Okay, so there are so many amazing women who've declared their candidacy. What's that say about where things are going and what women have done in the past to pave their way?
Well, I think that the first thing that it says is that men need to get out the way, okay?
Oh, sis, you go curse here.
Oh, I can.
It's a safe space.
Men need to get the fuck out the way.
Okay.
You know? I think that it's, you know, we have so many candidates and we can demand things of our candidates, you know, like we're not going to stand for a centrist. We're not going to stand for somebody who's going to throw Muslims under the bus or throw disabled people under the bus. We want somebody who's going to be driving the bus for freedom. Follow me on that metaphor, y'all. But I think that it's really about how, you know, we are demanding that we have change. And there's so many young people who are declaring their candidacy, like people who don't seem to understand that Ocasio-Cortez can't yet run for president, but are ready for her to. I think that says a lot about where the country is going. Like things that were so radical like 2 years ago are now very commonplace. We're talking about reparations on a national level, and I think that is very revolutionary.
So revolutionary.
Thank you so much for being here, Blair. And be sure to check out her book, Modern History, on Amazon.